Today I wanted to do a quick video on the effects that the changes brought about by the new 6th edition rulebook have had on the Blood Angels Codex. Obviously they're my army of choice time and time again, so I just wanted to share what I've sort of learned so far. We'll start at the beginning with the tactical squad, so I've got the handy codex here. And just going through sort of the general basics of the rules, the tactical squad has got a bit more powerful than it used to be. Given that it can now manoeuvre the rank and file troops, and its heavy weapon can still fire as long as that remains stationary. It can now move and snap fire with some of the weaponry in the squad. The rapid fire ranges have obviously changed in the main rulebook as well, so you can now move and fire once at full range or rapid fire 12 inches without, your moving doesn't limit you to only firing the 12, which is great. And obviously Sergeant can benefit from lookouts and challenges. So all in all, Tactical Squad's it's a nice addition for that Tactical Squad. The Assault Squads, on the other hand, have got much better. Basically before, obviously, you had the advantage of your high movement, which they've still got, but now they've got an even bigger charge range potentially, and also the Hammer of Wrath special rule, which just means they're going to flatten anything they're going to get into combat with on that charge. They've got that much more teeth. They're really going to be the troops choice that you'll go for every time with those, unless you're looking at Death Company. Things like your Devastator squads, again, they benefit from a lot of the same things the tactical squads do, but it's not necessarily a great addition for them, because a lot of the heavy support choices that the Blood Angels now have are much more beneficial than the Devastators. Your veteran squads, things like your Stern Guard and your Vanguard veterans. Your Vanguard veterans have obviously got a tiny bit better just because of the slight improvements with the Deep Strike special rules, and if they're obviously using the jump packs to get that boosted extra strength 4 attack on the charge, so strength 4 hit at initiative 10, which is a nice little addition to it. Your Stern Guard realistically stay pretty much the same as how they were, except for the benefits that affect like your standard tactical marines, such as the changes in rapid fire. We're on to Terminators now, so we're going through it, as you can probably tell, going through the bestiary in page by page order. Your Terminators have got much better. What can I say? There's a lot less now in combat that ignores that's AP2, so there's very little that's going to actually get through the armour of a Terminator. If they're sat there with Thunderhammers and Storm Shields, they're going to be a really dependable unit for you. So there you go with those. The Dreadnoughts, because the hull points change, can be a positive thing for the Dreadnoughts, particularly the Furiosos. The Storm Talons that go on the Furiosos and the Death Company Dreadnoughts, etc., have had a tiny bit of a nerf in that they're now AP3. But against the sort of targets you were using them against before, it's not going to have that much of an impact. They're rocking in with their Armour 13, which is that hard for troops to have a go at in combat, that the Dreadnought's really going to tear it a new one. So all in all, they've got better. Particularly the Death Company Dreadnought, now that the Rage special rule gives it an extra 2 attacks on the charge, and it no longer has the penalties for making you move towards the nearest target. You can freely move your unit, so I'm happy with that one. The bike squads, what can we say about Space Marine bikes other than, yeah, loads better now. The bracket, the old edition used to be instant death at strength 8, now it's strength 10, although they're only a 1 wound model, so that doesn't really have an effect, unless you're looking at putting a captain on a bike or a different character on a bike. Your scout squads, again, good improvements for scout squads. The changes in the sniper rules allow them to precision shot particular targets when they're rolling a 6 to hit. Really does help them pick out the heavy weapons in the enemy squads. If they're going to ground on objectives with their camo cloaks on and stuff, they're really hard to shift. So again, another good unit and positive changes for those. Drop pods, they were never really a unit I looked at before, particularly for the Blood Angels, because why would you really take a drop pod when you can have a jump pack for your assault squads, which is how I usually play my army. Not really anything got any better for a drop pod, really. No benefits of the new edition. Your land speeders, again, changes to the fast vehicle rule have affected them. because they can't actually move as fast in the movement phase before the shooting. However, they can now flat out a lot further, so if they are going to move, they can move a heck of a lot further than they could before. That same information is true for all fast Blood Angels vehicles, such as your Rhinos. Rhinos, I'm not sure whether, I can't really decide whether or not they've got a bit better or a bit worse. Obviously, hull points is always a good thing for the vehicles, unless you're playing Necrons, in which case you can get glanced to death before you even get to do anything with it. But now, obviously, if you move 12 in your vehicle, you can't actually disembark, but you can move 6 and disembark 6, so you're still getting that same similar sort of movement. You only lose a couple of inches, so that's a bit of a downside. But the fact that it can move much further when it's going flat out, you've actually got a bigger move with your Rhinos than you did before, so you could actually theoretically turn one flat, just drive it forwards and then flat out at full speed in the shooting phase and get them right across the board in turn 1. So that's a nice positive there. Obviously, a lot of the changes that affect the Rhinos affect all of the Rhino variants. The Razorbacks and Predators, for example, and the Whirlwinds. One thing that's nice is the benefit that the hull points now have on protecting the vehicle from the glancing hit. Things like your Vindicators and your Whirlwinds, anything that had one super weapon that was gonna, if that wasn't firing, it wasn't worth having the tank. The Vindicator is now much more likely to fire, for example, and anything under its big blast is going to be hit at full strength. So you don't have to be under the hull to get a strength 10 hit. You have to be anywhere under the blast as far as it goes for penetrating vehicles. So it is a smashing machine. I'm going to probably look at expanding my collection for my Blood Angels in that area, possibly picking up another 2 Vindicators, because the extra protection that the hull points give them means that they're more likely to get that big shot off. So yeah, I mean, that's why I was saying earlier that the Devastators, it's not really a great addition for them, because there's a lot more juicy stuff in the heavy support section now. If we move on to the next page, we've got the Bale Predators. Again, they just fit in and really well with what I've already covered. There's been some changes to the outflank rules, but they don't really affect vehicles. They more affect your infantry that's outflanking, because they can no longer charge the turn the outflank, which is great. Your Land Raiders have got better because of the advantage of the four hull points, so they're not going to get glanced and stopped. They're going to be able to get quite far in a turn as well across the board to deliver your troops. Because they're an assault vehicle, any turn a unit disembarks, they'll always be able to assault. So they are a really good delivery system for that powerful unit you want to get across the board. And Power of the Machine Spirit has slightly changed. It's just clarified some of it's just changed it so that they've clarified it with some of the garnish of the new edition, like moving flat out for any vehicle. Your Storm Ravens, well, these are probably the unit that's had the biggest change in the new edition, since they're no longer a fast skimmer, they're now a flyer. So flyers have obviously got a lot of benefits in that they can go super fast when they're coming onto the board, which makes them a lot harder to hit. So it actually toughens the Storm Raven up, because that was an area that was obviously a downside for the Storm Raven as soon as it was getting shot before it was dropping out of the sky. Now it's going to come on, it's going to be able to fire 4 weapons, and you're going to be able to hit it back on 6s unless you've got the Skyfire special rule. So yeah, really great unit. It's got hover mode, so it can become a skimmer to drop off its infantry that it's carrying if you're wanting to do that. But for its points and for the amount of carnage it can inflict on the turn it arrives, it's a really good choice in the heavy support section now. Obviously, Tech Marines, no real changes to those. The bolster defence is quite handy, but it can't boost a cover save to more than 3+ in its own right. So you won't be using it on your actual defences. You'll be using it to make something that's just on the table naturally and that little bit tougher for you. Your captains are quite a flexible HQ choice now because of the changes that the chaplains had, where the chaplains now have the power maul, which doesn't have as high an AP, but makes the chaplain higher strength in combat. Pluses and minuses to that. But your captain's really got the opportunity to now have a lot more variety in what you'll give him. You could probably look at giving him a Thunderhammer and a Storm Shield. He'll fight effectively. As long as he's in a squad with the sergeant can take care of the challenges. He can then the captain can then benefit from the lookout surge, so it gives him a good chance of surviving in combat and to deliver his thunderhammer blows. And now let's have a look at Captain Tycho, because in my opinion he's probably actually benefited the most out of all the Blood Angels characters from the changes. His Death Company form no longer has the downside that Rage had before. In fact, it's got a little bit better, obviously, as I mentioned with Rage earlier. He can now get the +2 attacks when he's charging. His Dead Man's Hand actually ignores armour saves. It's not a power weapon. It doesn't say anywhere it's a power weapon, so it ignores armour saves outright, which is what it says in the book. So he's actually got a weapon that strikes at his initiative that's going to get through any armour that there is in close combat. And it's also got 2d6 armour penetration and rerolls a single fail to wound roll each assault phase. So he's got quite a lot of upsides now. Obviously he's still got his 2+ armour save and his 4+ invulnerable, which is great because, as I said before, anything that you used to use to get rid of the 2+ saves, like your power weapons, a lot of them are AP3, so they're not going to get rid of it now. So yeah, Dante's a really great choice for your HQ. Not too expensive, but I know he's got some good benefits. I mentioned on the chaplains now having the power maul. Effectively, the Crozius counts as a power maul. There's still a good HQ choice because of the other benefits that they give to your squads, and that's really what you were taking the chaplains for before anyway. Obviously, you can take the lesser chaplains as your troops choices, so as your elites choices. So there's quite a lot of upsides to take in them. Lamarty's, again, I won't cover Lamarty's separately. He's sort of fits in with the chaplains, and I've already covered like the changes to Rage that would obviously have affected him anyway. There are some changes to Feel No Pain, which I'll just cover now because the Death Company are next. The changes to Feel No Pain make Feel No Pain a little bit worse and a little bit better at the same time. Not as much as getting rid of Feel No Pain outright, because you're always going to get your Feel No Pain unless it's causing instant death, so you've always got your 5+. But the downside is it's a 5+ instead of a 4+. It's swings and roundabouts really. It just gives you that little bit of extra protection having it when it was a 4+, but now you've got it providing you with a save against things like your plasma weaponry, so it's not too bad. Death Company benefited massively from the new Rage rules, but obviously they're still not a scoring unit, and a lot of the missions now involve objectives rather than your kill points being 1 in 3 games. It's now more like 1 in 6. So it's really important to have your objective holders. But the Death Company are, as I said, a good unit still. Astaroth has probably had a bit of a hit. Some of the Blood Angels characters have sort of slipped back a bit. The main reason is before obviously he was ignoring armour saves and making the enemy re-roll any failed invulnerable saves. He still benefits from making the enemy re-roll their invulnerable saves, but his Executioner's Axe is classed as a unique power weapon because it's got its own unique special rules. So it's not benefiting from a universal special rule in the main rulebook, so it's an AP3 weapon basically. So it's not going to get through everyone's armour.